Kobi from Lancaster University, and I'll be presenting our paper, ManneqKit Cards, a kinesthetic empathic design tool for communicating depression experiences. So, the rationale for this work is threefold. Firstly, that depression is an affective disorder with complex affective, cognitive, and physical symptoms. But the lived experiences of depression are often less accessible and difficult to understand for researchers. One method which attempts to combat this is empathic design, through methods such as narratives and role play, but these often emphasize verbal communication. However, many aspects of depression are non-verbal, and thus there is a demand for novel empathic design methods that emphasize non-verbal communication. To explore this, we focused on the following questions. What are the key lived experiences of depression? How can these experiences be represented through postures? And what value these experiences and their representations have for the design of technologies for depression. To approach this, we conducted co-design workshops with 10 therapists to elicit postures representative of depression. We then used these to inform the design of ManneqKit, and this was then evaluated for the ability to elicit empathic response in a pilot study, and the value in the design process for digital interventions for depression. In a bit more detail, the aim of the first study was to extract key aspects of depression and how they relate to the posture and the body. 10 therapists were independently interviewed, during which they were asked to identify key aspects of depression, then provided with a kit that you can see on the right that consisted of a wire model, coloured Play-Doh, and they used these tools to represent the aspects of depression that they discussed. Key findings include diverse descriptions and postural metaphors for depression. So for the metaphor-based descriptions, these include metaphors like depression is black and depression is weight, which documented heavily in literature. We also present a new metaphor here, depression is contraction. The metaphor relates to external forces coming in from all directions and is illustrated by quotes like closed and trapped. Symptom-based experiences include things like emotional symptoms like sadness or lack of enjoyment, physical symptoms like lack of energy or fatigue, and cognitive symptoms like negative thinking or negative outlook. Another key finding is the contextual information added to postures using the coloured Play-Doh, like small grey or black balls depicting the head to represent lack of motivation, flat grey shapes to represent weight, or objects like rocks and stones, again used to represent weight, but also where in the body this weight is felt. Of the 29 postures generated, 24 were simple and 5 were complex. So for the pilot stage of the second study, the aim was to assess the communicative power of these postures and also the ability for the postures and the text to elicit an empathic response from non-therapists. The 4 therapists were interviewed in person and an online form was given to 10 non-therapists. In this online form, which you can see examples of here on the right, the images of the posture and the text were showed, along with an empathic scale given to each participant. They were then also asked to identify the top 3 most effective postures. A key finding of this study is the combination of posture and text-based descriptions elicit a stronger empathic response. These results formed the cards, which we present as a kinesthetic empathic design tool consisting of postures of depression and accompanying vignettes. The design of these was informed by the role of the body in depression, the importance of embodied experiential meaning in empathy, and the relationship between bodily postures and depression. Again, existing empathic design work emphasizes verbal communication, but these leverage the non-verbal aspects of depression. We also detail the value of these cards when designing for depression. So to evaluate ManneqKit, the cards, we conducted a second study to explore how they are for communicating lived experiences of depression and their value for interaction design. To do this, we gave groups of interaction designers a design brief, introduction to depression, as well as each group was given 5 of the 15 cards, given time to digest and discuss the cards as a group. They were then given 20 minutes to develop a design, and then interviews were carried out afterwards to explore the designer's perception of the cards and, importantly, the value of these cards in designing their concept. Key findings indicate that the cards were useful in the design by being emotionally powerful, as well as allowing for an empathic understanding of depression and how physical, affective, and cognitive symptoms are experienced as a whole, so more holistic representation. I'll now summarise the key insights of our work. Firstly, lived experiences of depression are metaphorically rich. While the presence of physical and emotional symptoms of depression is less surprising, what is surprising is the abundant use of metaphors of depression, such as depression is black and depression is weight. A key finding here as well is the prevalence of a new metaphor, which we call contraction. This involves both external and internal forces, all encompassing and exercising pressure towards the person living with depression. This metaphor is also reflected in phenomenological accounts of lived experiences, but it's often difficult to understand as it's both hidden and strongly unfamiliar to people without depression. Findings also highlight that descriptions of lived experiences don't often just represent one symptom or one metaphor, but they're often described in conjunction with others. This can also be contextualized through spatial and temporal details of everyday life, such as what are they doing and when are they doing it, or where are they? The second insight is that postural representations are creative and ambiguous. So a fifth of these postures were impossible to physically enact, and this contrasts with stereotypical postures described in clinical research. Our postures did not merely capture physical symptoms, but also emphasized in powerful and evocative ways the richness of depression experience. The creativity required to generate them can lead to more ambiguous postures and postures more open to interpretation, but these postures are generally more evocative and able to elicit a stronger empathic response. Finally, and most importantly, our work has highlighted the value of the ManneqKit cards as one example of a new type of empathic design tool, namely those leveraging bodily qualities of depression. Firstly, the mix of vignettes and postures complementing and reinforcing each other. As findings from both the pilot section of the second study and the workshops carried out with designers, we suggest that traditional narrative-based methods such as personae and scenarios can be extended to capture the nonverbal aspects of experience through forms of craft. Through this, one could achieve more communication of the lived body. Secondly is holistic representation of depression. The cards manage to integrate postures and vignettes of depression which consist of multiple physical, cognitive, and emotional symptoms, providing a fuller representation of depression and specifically how this experience can affect everyday life. In the design process, these cards effectively framed designers' empathic understanding of depression and informed their ideation, underpinned by strong ethical values. And lastly is the empathy paradox. So because the cards were both emotionally powerful, they elicited empathy while at the same time presenting the challenge of negative emotions for designers. In HCI, the importance of accounting for researchers and designers' well-being has been made previously, but such work is focused on better preparation through access to support peers. We extend these suggestions for balancing empathy with distancing, suggesting that future work should explore how such training can be designed and delivered, both before and after emotionally charged research. Thank you.